As I come into a deeper understanding as to my means of manifestation and materialization, my intention is to share everything with you. And so this is why I make so many videos and so much content, is to not simply just lecture to you and tell you this is the way you're supposed to do it, because in actuality, every way in which we do it is unique. And it is special and individualized, customized for us. And so the intention here is to give you tidbits, give you some insight, some, clues as to what it is that, I'm doing, the revelations I'm discovering along the way, and essentially what you can then say, you know what, I can try that. That resonates with me. I can take that on. And so as I take this journey, this intentional journey to align with the frequency of my future self, my intention lately has been about making sure I get my books out to as many people as possible, making sure that I create a system, a program, a curriculum, a means by which I can share my insight in a formulaic way and essentially make a good living from it, make essentially millions of dollars from it possibly as well, because I know the great value that I'm giving. So what I want to share with you is something that dawned on me just last week and carried over until today. And I want to share with you some insight that I've had just about materialization, just about getting the results when I'm getting them, and then paying attention to the patterns. You see, the trick with manifestation is that you do it all the time. Okay. We talk about learning to manifest, learning to materialize, to attract things to us. The thing is, you already know how to do it. The problem is there's a disconnection between your nature as a creator and what it is that you intentionally want, what you desire. Okay. Everything that happens in your life, everything that you've created and you experience is a result of you basically being a master of materialization and manifestation. Now, all we want to do, though, is learn how to direct it, right? We want to direct it to a particular desire, right? We want a particular result or outcome. That's the trick. That's what we want to do. Yes, you are a master of manifestation, but how do you master, or how do you manifest the thing that you absolutely desire versus what appears to be randomness that's coming at you? Okay. Now, the randomness isn't really random. All right. It's really about the byproducts of your conscious mind, especially your subconscious mind. And I'm going to hint on the subconscious a little bit more later on, but especially all the things that's happening in your subconscious mind. Now, remember, your subconscious mind collects all the information, data, all your experiences, everything and everything you've experienced is stored in your subconscious mind, along with your biological mechanisms, your body, what it's supposed to do. It is in charge of all of that. So when you have dreams, you may have these weird dreams where you're dreaming about this and that, things that have nothing to do with each other, but somehow they're mashed together in this dream. That's because you're swimming in your subconscious mind when you're dreaming. That is also the time when you are able to program the subconscious mind before sleep and after sleep, especially. And so manifestation, let me get into it. Now, when it comes to manifestation, there are two elements of manifestation, right? There is the action of manifestation, right? And then there's the inaction we can call, but really what we're talking about is the stillness of manifestation. Okay. Now think about it this way. Look at nature, always look at nature as your teacher, right? When you look at nature, And if you look at the universe, there's always a contrast, right, of two things happening, two things counteracting, two things balancing one another, two things, you know, essentially happening not at the same time, but replacing one another, but in a rhythmic fashion, like the sun and the moon, night and day, right? So when we think about action and stillness, we're thinking about that as well, because action can look like, sun or daylight, right? That's when we are most active and engaged. Whereas stillness can look like the moon, right? And nighttime. Okay. When we are essentially the least active, we're sleeping, right? Daytime action is about being awake, is about movement. Stillness is about being still. It's about being calm. It's about resting, recuperative. All right. Now, there are so many ways we can go with this, so many things we can use as analogies for action and stillness, right? So action is about taking charge, being assertive, aggressive. Stillness is surrender, relaxation, surrender, I said already, but also faith. Okay. Very important. Faith is very important when it comes to manifestation. You must have faith in the actions and the things that you do. Okay. So when we, or should I say, when I have this belief, this underlying belief about myself that I must do. Not only that I must do, but that I do better when I do more. Okay. That's my personal conversation. I don't identify with somebody who instantly recognizes talent, right? And just relies on talent. Some people are just gifted and talented at different things. Now, though I am gifted and talented at many things, that's not my go-to, right? My go-to is if I see something that's intriguing to me that I want to do and pursue, my go-to way of thinking about it is, oh, I know I can figure that out. All I have to do is put in lots of reps, lots of time, and I'll figure it out. Okay. That's my go-to. That's even considered to me a talent in itself. And so naturally, my go-to or my frequency, as we bring it to future self frequency and matching the frequency of what you desire, is that work, right? Even when we talk about and think about these videos on my content is way more frequent than other people's. Why? Because my strategy from the beginning was I can definitely figure out a way to make more videos, write more blogs, write more books, create more content than anybody else. I can outwork anybody else. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that mentality, because if it's true for you, then it'll work, right? And it has been working for me. But there are moments where you should ask yourself and do a check-in where you say, could it be a better way, right? Because you can look and observe and see other people. This isn't about comparing yourself, but this is just about paying attention and being mindful about the area, right? Being mindful about your quote unquote competitors or your, the people that are in your field, in your industry, in your niche. Pay attention to what's going on for them, and it gives you some insight, right? So as I look at other people who are creating content on manifestation, materialization, spirituality, consciousness, I do pay attention to how many views they have. And I'm like, it's fascinating because I know the value of my content and my material. So I recognize that it isn't a matter of their value, their material, their content is better than mine's, but yet they got more views. okay, a lot of things are out of your hands when it comes to algorithms and things of that nature. And you can try to build that up, down that rabbit hole of figuring out what the algorithm is and this and that. And, as far as I've gotten is making sure the quality of my video is good, making sure the audio is great, and then just allowing myself to be the vessel, the channel by which people can learn a different perspective about spirituality and especially about aligning with their future self. So I started to pay attention and I'm starting to ask myself, okay, what is it? Like, what's going on? And as I really get into, the work of matching the frequency of my future self, knowing my future self is somebody who, not so much has the largest following in the world, because that's not really the thing. It's about the lifestyle that I want, that I desire, and matching that lifestyle and recognizing the alignment of, hundreds and hundreds of book sales happening every day and millions of dollars in a particular lifestyle where I can teach even more and provide more value as a result of what it is that I'm aligning with, right? And so as I'm looking at the landscape of other content creators, other teachers, and I'm looking at what they're teaching, and I'm really being very supportive and happy about their success, but I'm also being mindful about, okay, what's going on? Where is the disconnect, right? And so it's never an opportunity for you to beat yourself up, because I know the content is solid. I know the quality is solid. I know my audio is solid. I know all the things are solid. So then it goes into asking yourself internally the questions about you and your frequency. And so this is something that I do. You see, my journey isn't about me lecturing to you the perfection of my process. My journey is, yes, sharing with you what I know works for me, but also sharing with you what I am learning that works for me. And this is my intention today, sharing with you what I'm understanding about balancing action and stillness. And it's very important, just like the sun and the moon is very important in nature, right? You have to understand that action is very important. And we can categorize action as even, intention, right? You can categorize thought as action, emotions, right? You can categorize these things as action because you have to be intentional about it. And that in itself is an action. Okay. Now, but then we go further into the physical, right? The physical doing of something, whether it be writing a book, whether it be making videos, whether it be communicating, right? Whether it be simply going out and being active if you want to be fit. Communicating relates to your relationships. If you want a great relationship or cultivate a great relationship, you have to put yourself out there and you have to communicate, right? You have to talk to somebody that you're attracted to, and you have to talk about what it is that you wish to create and cultivate in a relationship, right? That is all action related. Now, here's the thing that I noticed is that because I identify so much with taking action, there was a sense of, I need to do more. I need to do more. I need to do more. There was a point where I was writing a book almost every month and I was publishing them on Amazon. And that was fun. It is fun to do that. And it is great. And it is something to be proud of for myself. I'm proud of it when I look at the books that I have written and that they're selling on Amazon. But then it got to a point where I had to recognize, okay, the books are there. I've created them. They're doing great. I'm making my content, my videos. I love and I'm proud about the quality and what I'm putting out there, and especially the impact that is making in people's lives, such as yourself. But then I had to pivot, right? Because I'm like, okay, but it's not quite getting me what I desire, so to speak. So then I decided, you know what? Instead of focusing on creating multiple books, let me focus on one book and focus on a book that I know is going to be the most impactful. And so that's when I was inspired to write The Futures of Frequency. And so I decided to change from the doing, right, all the time, recognizing that that is my pattern and that I must shift from that pattern. Because though doing is imperative, too much doing pulls you away from the being. Okay. If you do too much of it, if you're so caught up in the doing of something, it's almost as if you are, not trusting. Okay. It's almost as if you are not, I should say, you're not trusting, right? You're not really believing. Okay. You are acting from a place of lack and desperation, essentially, because you are constantly, essentially chasing. You're chasing. Now, again, I want to reiterate the importance of taking action, but the action must be backed by faith. Okay. The action must be backed by a understanding of alignment with this idea, this version of you. Okay. And so when you look at the future version of yourself that you desire to be, I'm sure you do not see a version of you that is constantly moving, trying, right, to create this thing. I'm sure you see the version of yourself in a space where it almost seems like things are just kind of coming to you. Yes, based on what you've created. Yes, based on what you've done. Yes, based on your talents. But essentially, when you see your future self and that version of you that has it all, you're not seeing a version of you that is working like a workhorse constantly, right? You're seeing a version of you that is chilling on the beach, that is relaxing at home, but still having all of the things that you desire coming at you as a result of you dialing into your talent, right? Or your passion. Okay. Now, sometimes your passion, when you are somebody who can commit 100% of your time to your passion, then even that doesn't feel like work, right? It just simply feels like you being engaged in life. So that really is not what I'm talking about when I talk about action, even though it can relate. But if you're at a place where you are following your passion and you're still wondering, like, why doesn't this thing take off yet? It's because you have to focus more on the stillness. Okay. Now, here's a thing that I've learned when it comes to the materialization of my intention with my book sales, with coaching programs, with aligning with the version of me that I know myself to be, is that when I am in the middle of taking action, for some reason, the results don't quite happen right at that moment. But when I am still, things just happen. Okay. For example, I'm a person that takes naps. Okay. I love taking naps. Maybe it's my age, but actually, I've always taken naps, especially during my adult age. I like taking naps, especially when I got into fitness and stuff. So, what I find is the majority of my sales, especially for my books, happen when I'm in the middle of taking a nap. I get a notification on my phone. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And it happens when I'm taking a nap. Okay. Rarely does it happen when I'm awake. Now, it could be the subconscious programming of wanting to make money, right? When you sleep, right? It could be that part, right? But really what I think it is sleep is when I'm most in my stillness. Because when I sleep, I am very intentional about what I'm thinking about, right? Basically, I am aligning myself with the future version of me when I'm going to sleep, when I'm napping, while I'm in that between life dream state, where you're kind of in still the conscious realm, right? Where you kind of feel like you're in your body and right before you go into that deep sleep. That's when that's when you're most able to impact and influence and program your subconscious mind. So when you're in that state, it's very important. Don't do it while you're watching TV, even though I am guilty sometimes. I have my anime on when I'm watching some kind of show that I've seen thousands of times, and I have it on and I'll drift to sleep. Now, what I do is I'm able to really like identify it. I close my laptop and then I go to sleep with the intentions of aligning with my future self, meaning that I am visualizing that reality. I am in a space where I am seeing myself living that lifestyle, being that person. Okay. That's when you are most powerful in terms of aligning with your future self. So the stillness is really the stillness of the conscious mind. Okay. Now, the conscious mind is most active when you're in action, and it should be. That's when you're analyzing. That's when you're coming with conclusions, strategies, you're in it. That's great. That's when you're like planting the seed, right? That's when you're sowing the soil, right? So to speak, right? You're planting the seed. But the stillness is when you are basically watering. Okay. You're providing the nutrients. That's when the seed is growing. Okay. This is the most important part. This is imperative, but this is the most important part. So you have to get into mastering stillness. Stillness looks like and being intentional with your mind and what it is that you're thinking about. Making sure that you are thinking about the desire, making sure you're thinking about the desire actualized, right? The desire real. Okay. Not like you're fantasizing, not like you're wishing, but actually it's actually happening. Okay. That is what you are to do when you are still, when you are sleep. Now, sleep can be literally going to sleep, but it can also be a meditation. Okay. I don't have room here. A meditation. It can be affirmation. Okay. But ultimately, stillness is really about calming the conscious mind. So is not always being stimulated. It's not always being or identifying with the senses. Okay. Because that's what the problem is essentially when we are misaligned or having a problem aligning with that desire is that we are identifying with the senses. Okay. We're identifying with the experience that we're having at the moment, the circumstance. Whereas when you are still, okay, and you quiet the conscious mind and you're in the subconscious, then that's when you can actually that's when you can actually make the most impact in your alignment with your frequency. Okay. So understand the importance of stillness, understand the importance of just chilling. Essentially, that's what we're talking about. Just chill. Now, one must be assisted with the other. You cannot have one without the other. You cannot have the sun, okay, without the moon. All right. You cannot have hot without cold. Okay. You cannot have up without down. Okay. Please understand this. So your action is important. Your stillness is important. They come together. Yin and yang. All right. You must recognize the importance of this symbol. We see this symbol all the time and we kind of take it for granted because we've seen it so much and we haven't been taught on what it means exactly. It simply means that you must balance the two elements of creation, of life. And so what I am learning and understanding is that, especially at this point for me, because my actions has built such a foundation already. You see, I have already created the thing, right? I've already created, or I'm creating or establishing the brand. I just need to simply continue doing that and trusting in that. I must be still in that. Okay. The action is already done for me. So all I have to do is have faith in what I've already done. Have faith in myself. Have faith in the seed that I planted. Okay. And trusting that it will grow like all seeds do, as long as they are provided with the proper nutrients, water, and the right environment. Okay. And so that's all I have to do. And I make sure that all these things function from that place. So anything, I'm relating it to my book, The Future Self Frequency, which is available at futureselffrequency.com. But this applies to everything. This applies to love. This applies to health. Okay. This applies to money. This applies to your passion. So you have to step out of this idea of identifying with this old version of yourself that may be somebody who is just still and not having any action implemented, or somebody who may be closer to who I once was, where it was all action, 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 without any stillness. And so when these are not in balance, then you cannot, match the frequency of the version of you that has that thing you desire. So you have to be still. You have to be still. You have to practice faith. All right. But you also have to do. Okay. So figure out what it is that you need to do, because you've already figured out what you want, right? What you desire. That's very important. Get clear about that. Once you figure that out, then the doing, right, will essentially reveal more to you. But as you do, have faith in what you're doing. Take moments to be still. Sometimes when I am still as well, I get the best ideas about the doing. Okay. Because sometimes we do, and we are just so in our tunnel vision mentality that we are missing a lot. So do, but also make sure that you implement the skill and the necessity of being still. All right. When you do that, then everything will be a lot smoother in this journey of becoming the future self you know yourself to be. All right. So, like I said before, feel free to go to futureself.com. Futureselffrequency.com. Pick up the Future Self Frequency Deluxe Edition. Also, you can pick up the journal. You can also go to drabundant.com where you can get a free PDF version of the Future Self Frequency along with the first chapter of the deluxe edition as well. Thank you so much. If you have any questions or comments, please leave so in the comment section below. Peace and abundance always.